In the clip you just saw, we established how easy it is to hijack a session once the attacker knows the session ID. And we used a reflected cross-site scripting attack in order for the attacker to get hold of it. But there are other risks which lead to the disclosure of the session ID from a cookie. So for example, cookies will often be captured in exception logs. There are many different frameworks out there, many different tools that aid developers by ensuring that when an unhandled exception occurs in an application, as much information as possible is logged, so that the developer can then go and review the exception and figure out what went wrong. Now, unfortunately, those logs can contain session IDs. In fact, they can contain multiple different attributes of sensitive data, but the one we're going to look at here is that session ID. Now, my vulnerable website here uses a framework called Almar, the Error Logging Modules and Handlers. And you can come across exposed Almar, and many websites that use Almar do unfortunately make the details public. So let's do this. We'll go to the Almar exception log, which is unfortunately exposed on this application, and we can see here that there is one exception. We can see that the exception was an invalid column name, but it doesn't really matter what type of exception it was. There are many different circumstances that can lead to an exception in a web app. The important thing is that we can now drill down into this exception. And when we drill down, we get a lot of internal implementation data. Now, one of the things that gets disclosed in this internal implementation is the actual HTTP request. And of course, when you have a valid cookie for a site, the cookie gets sent in the request. So here's our session ID. Right here in plain text in the log. We didn't need to send anyone malicious links or cause requests to go to the attacker's website with the session ID. The website was already exposing it, a great big log of everybody's session ID if they had an active session on the website when an unhandled exception was raised and then logged by Almar. Now this is a serious problem because it means that there are just all of these exposed repositories of active session IDs floating around the web. And in fact, it's very easy just to search for these. So there are Google Docs, very carefully crafted Google searches that allow you to specifically find exposed logs, not just from Almar, but from all sorts of different frameworks as well. And there are a significant number of them out there. They're literally just a quick search away. But it's not just cookies that are captured here in this request. And in fact, if we scroll down a little bit, we can also see the path. Now there's nothing really sensitive in this path. It's just /make/1. Something then went wrong on that path. But the point is the path has been captured here. And that then leads us into the discussion about could we possibly leak sensitive data via the path? Sensitive data that could be used in a session hijacking attack. Let's go and have a look at what happens when an exception like this is raised when the session ID is persisted via the URL.